Marc Marquez provided some interesting clues about his future in MotoGP at the Spanish Grand Prix. Yes, as you know, Marquez this year is riding for a satellite team on a year-old Ducati, when throughout his whole career pretty much he has been a factory spec rider. That's even going back to 125, where he was the factory KTM rider in 125, then moved on to a factory spec Aprilia, which was a derby, when he won the world title in 2010. He of course also was a factory rider essentially for Suter. He was their main rider in Moto 2 and of course won the world title in 2012. Then from 2013 to 2023 he was the main man at Honda. He's only been used to factory surroundings and this year is very different for him. I'd say it's brought out probably the best that we've seen in him in terms of his attitude off track, his demeanour when he celebrates, his relaxed mannerisms that we see now. He's a completely different Marquez. Yes, it helps that he's on a great bike, but the family atmosphere at Gresini has truly made him, I think, to people and a lot of people that are watching the sport, a very different person. But ultimately, you know where he wants to go. His goal that he said to the press is that he wants to do his 100% this year to have a factory bike. But then he was speaking to the Spanish media, of course, and it went from having a factory bike next year to wanting a factory team. He was asked about the satellite team of Pramac Ducati, and this is what he had to say. Pramac is a great team which has factory bikes and has shown that it is capable of fighting for the World Championship, but it is not a factory team. It's a good team, satellite, but it's not a factory team. So that leads you to say that Marc Marquez only wants, well, two things maybe: a factory bike and a factory team. Now, there's only really two of those spots that are available, and you guessed it, they're both Italian. One of them is Ducati, one of them is Aprilia. Now, would Ducati put him in beside Pecco Bagnaia in 2025? We have discussed this at length on our podcast. I've done separate videos on this. Where do I think he will end up? Honestly, it changes week by week, but this is my final stance on it. I think he's going to stay with Ducati, and I think it's either going to be a factory bike in the factory team or a factory bike with Gresini. But I'm leaning towards him riding a factory Ducati in the factory team alongside Pecco Bagnaia. Here's my reasoning why. Gigi Dall'Igna loves Marc Marquez. This is no secret. I've seen this relationship on camera all year. I'm sure you have too. Gigi is very happy that he has Marc Marquez on a Ducati. And of course, it is the year-old Ducati. What he done fighting Pecco Bagnaia, amazing race that we had in the Spanish Grand Prix, just showed Ducati. And I think maybe their management, that of course they knew how good Marc Marquez has been since he switched. They can see all the data, they can see everything. But I think it just clicked with them. Wow, this is an 8-time world champion on a satellite bike, on a year-old machine, who's doing things in his 4th race that maybe they didn't expect so quickly. Now, I know a lot of people will say it's Marc Marquez. Why didn't you expect it? But I think it's truly incredible what he is doing, and it only leads to one thing. I think Ducati don't want to mess this up. You know, they have a very difficult decision to make. Do they keep Enea Bastianini, who has been fantastic by the way this season, sitting 3rd in the World Championship? He has delivered really consistent results. He's proving to be a really good teammate to Pecco Bagnaia, and most importantly, the team harmony in that factory setup is very crucial, and Pecco and Enea get on very well. Jorge Martin is leading the World Championship. Yes, he crashed out, made his first mistake of the weekend at Jerez. His lead in the championship has shrunk, but as I said, he's leading the World Championship and has probably been the rider of the season so far. He wants a factory Ducati. He is not going to stay at Pramac. He's made that clear. He wants a factory seat, and I think he wants the Ducati. Why not? He was meant to get it in 2022 at the end for 2023, but he didn't get it. He lost it to Enea Bastianini, and I think he lost it fair and square. I don't think he was owed this seat, but the attitude that I got from Martin is that he felt that he deserved it after his 2021 season. Fights all the way for the world title in 2023, comes up short. This year is his ultimatum, and I think we've discussed it on a video. I'll link it here about Jorge Martin. I don't think Ducati really like his forceful attitude, if that makes sense. He's trying to force this move, and rightly so. He deserves it. He wouldn't have foreseen Marc Marquez at the start of 2023 going to Gresini Ducati, and this is where it gets interesting. Ducati are a marketing machine, and if they had the two best riders, which is Pecco Bagnaia, Marc Marquez, that's my opinion, I think they're the best on the grid, that would be a dream. Is it feasible though? Yes, Marquez might be older, but he is proving how good of a talent he actually is. You know, people question when he came back from his injury, would he be the same in terms of his raw talent is still there. And the thing that's different that maybe makes Marquez not maybe the same rider is his mentality switch now. You know, he has went through an awful lot and his confidence has taken a real battering over the last few years, and I think this is where people misunderstand it. He is an incredible talent. He's the most talented rider I've ever seen on a motorbike. And when you take a battering mentally in terms of confidence, the crisis that he had on the Honda, the injuries, to come back and have doubts whether you're good enough. And he's showing how good he is on the Ducati now. Not to forget he got his first pole position as well at Jerez. He wants this Ducati and he wants this factory seat. I think it'd be strange for him to go to Aprilia after building up so much knowledge on a Ducati that maybe it wouldn't be worth his time to switch. Another year of adapting to something. I think he doesn't want that. He wants the factory seat. As a marketing brand, he's the biggest rider in MotoGP. And you bet that Dorna, Liberty Media, they want to have the biggest star in the best seat and the biggest audience possible to see him at the front each weekend. Because when he's at the front, we get close and exciting racing. It's just a fact. He loves to battle. He puts on a show. This is my thinking behind it. There's a lot goes into it. It's all about not the results on track. Of course, that's so important. It's the complete package. What do they bring outside of that? No, social media, everything. Just the numbers they get on MotoGP. And Marc Marquez is by far the biggest at that. So some of you might not agree with me, but that's okay. I think if he keeps his results up in the next few rounds, I think he'll be riding for Ducati next year. And a lot of people say, well, what about the sponsorship thing? Ducati, of course, are sponsored by Monster Energy. Marc Marquez has been a lifelong Red Bull athlete. And I think, you know, whatever happens with Ducati's contract with Monster, you know, is it a rolling contract? Does it have a 2-year extension? Is it a year-by-year thing? If Marc Marquez was to go to factory Ducati, I don't think it would be an issue. There'd be some sort of deal that would be worked out between parties who could carry sponsorships, who will not. If Marquez has a change, I think he would do it personally. You know, he would be a Red Bull athlete for life. We've seen it with riders in the past. They've switched and then came back to it when they've left the contract that they're in. Yeah, I think Ducati want him. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to follow us on social media. Listen to the podcast if you haven't. We covered everything from the Spanish Grand Prix, and an episode will be out next week on Tuesday to preview the French Grand Prix. So if you've enjoyed that, leave a comment, subscribe, like all that business, and we will see you next time.